Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep on WorldCoin, or as they're calling it now, World. It's got everyone buzzing, with this crazy mix of tech iris scanning orbs
Right.
and this kind of plan to totally shake up how money works.
Yeah, it's ambitious.
We've got reports, analyses, the whole shebang. So let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So first off, the thing everyone's talking about, this orb.
Right.
They actually made a thing that scans your eye to prove you're human. Isn't that right? Out of some sci-fi movie?
Yeah, it does have that kind of feel, science fiction becoming reality.
Totally.
But the tech behind it, that's what's impressive.
Okay, so how does it actually work?
So it uses these multispectral sensors. They capture images of your iris using different wavelengths of light.
Okay.
And from that, it builds this really detailed, unique iris code.
So basically like a fingerprint, but for your eye.
Exactly. And because iris patterns are so complex, totally unique to each person,
Right.
they're incredibly hard to fake.
Oh, so that's what makes the orb so good for verifying who you are.
Yeah, it's powerful for that.
But okay, what's to stop someone from just taking a picture of my eye and using that?
Right. So that's where the tech gets really smart. It's not just a photo.
Okay.
It analyzes all those tiny patterns and textures in your iris using multiple wavelengths of light.
Oh, wow.
So the code it creates is practically impossible to fake with a simple picture.
So this new orb, they say it's even more secure and efficient than before.
Right.
Something like 30% fewer parts, which I guess is good for making them.
Yeah, that reduction makes it cheaper to produce for sure, but also tougher, more reliable.
Makes sense.
Fewer parts means less can go wrong. And that all ties into their plan to get these orbs everywhere.
Yeah, I read they're even partnering with delivery services like Rappi down in Latin America.
Right, so people can order an orb on demand.
Like pizza, but instead of a pepperoni pizza, you get an iris scanner.
It is a pretty wild way to distribute cutting-edge tech.
So, okay, let's say you get scanned. Where does all that data go? And how do they make sure it's not being used for, bad stuff?
Yeah, that's the big question, and they've gotten a lot of heat for it.
At least so.
What they say is the iris code is encrypted and stored as this thing called an anonymized hash. So the actual picture of your iris is never kept, only this scrambled version of the code that can't be reversed.
So they can use it to check your ID, but they can't actually see your iris from that stored data.
Exactly like a message in a shredder. You can't put it back together to read it.
Interesting analogy.
And they're trying to follow all the data privacy rules like GDPR, but still people are wary.
Yeah, I get that, especially since they got shut down for a bit in some countries.
Right, some places got spooked.
So it seems like a tightrope walk,
Mm-hmm.
Between this cool new tech and people's right to privacy.
It is a balance for sure.
Making it available is great.
Yeah.
But I see why people worry about misuse.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
It's important to think about that, to look closely at the protections they have in place.
Totally. But let's shift gears a bit to another interesting thing about WorldCoin, their whole universal basic income idea.
Okay, UBS.
This idea of everyone getting paid just for existing.
Right. It's a big idea, been talked about forever, and how are they going to do it with WorldCoin?
That's what I want to know.
So the idea is to use their WorldCoin token, WLD, to basically make UBI happen worldwide. You prove you're human with the orb, and you get free tokens, so a basic income stream just starts.
So basically digital UBI using their own cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that's the gist. But how's that different from just using Bitcoin or something else we already have?
Good question.
That's where the orb and the World ID come in. They're trying to build a system where only real people, verified people,
I see.
can get and use WorldCoin so it's fair and keeps out bots and fake accounts.
That's smart.
It's a new way to solve some of the problems that have always messed with UBI ideas.
So not just handing out money, but making sure the right people get it.
Exactly. Using their tech to solve both sides of the problem. And it's clever.
Yeah, but how does it compare to other crypto solutions out there? There's going to be other projects trying to do similar stuff, right? Like making finance more inclusive and all that.
Oh, yeah. Tons of projects are exploring how to use blockchain for these kinds of things.
Right.
But what makes WorldCoin stand out is this proof of personhood thing.
Using biometrics to tell real people from AI or fake accounts.
Right. That's their hook.
So it's more than just a new coin. It's like a whole system for proving who you are online.
You're listening to Echoes of Insight, where we dive deep into the topics shaping our world, from the planet and politics to health, consciousness, economy, and alternative lifestyles. If you're enjoying the journey, make sure to subscribe and share this podcast with others who love exploring new perspectives.
Yeah, in this whole digital age.
Which is a huge goal.
Ambitious. to say the least.
So how do you think their UBI thing will work out? Especially compared to like Bitcoin, which is already being used for all sorts of financial stuff.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? There are tons of hurdles, like how much the token's price jumps around, whether they can get enough people using it.
Right.
And of course, the whole regulatory landscape, what do governments think about all this? But the scale of what they're trying to do is what makes it fascinating.
It's not just a new way to pay. It's like they're trying to change how we see identity being human, even what it means to be a citizen in this digital world we're building.
Exactly. And that gets to the heart of it. You know, if they succeed in verifying billions of people, what does that do to the power balance between individuals, companies, governments? It's huge.
Those are some deep questions.
Yeah.
And we've barely scratched the surface of WorldCoin.
Yeah, we've got a lot more ground to cover.
We'll dive even deeper into the implications of this whole thing and how it might change the world as we know it right after the break.
Looking forward to it. Feels like we're watching this whole new era of digital ID unfold right in front of us.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But like with any new tech, there's going to be some hiccups along the way.
For sure.
We talked about the data privacy stuff earlier, but I think it's worth digging into that a bit more.
Definitely. I mean, a company scanning billions of irises, it's bound to raise some eyebrows about security and what they could do with that data.
Right. Like, are they going to sell it or something?
Well, it's important to remember that WorldCoin is decentralized.
Okay.
So there's not one big boss controlling all that data.
So they couldn't just like hand over all the iris scans to the government even if they wanted to.
Exactly. It's spread out across a bunch of computers, making it way harder for anyone to get at it or control it.
So that sounds more secure than like a regular database.
Yeah, much more.
But what about hackers? Aren't blockchains like vulnerable to attacks?
They can be, but the whole point of blockchain is to be super secure.
Okay.
The cryptography they use is like ridiculously hard to crack.
But we've seen some pretty big crypto hacks, haven't we?
Yeah.
How do we know WorldCoin's system is really safe from that kind of thing?
Well, no system is perfect, right? But they are using some really advanced techniques to make it as secure as possible.
Okay.
One thing they use is zero-knowledge proofs.
You mentioned that before, but I'm still not totally clear on what that is.
Okay, so imagine you're trying to prove you're over 21 without showing your ID. You could solve some math problem that only someone over 21 would know the answer to right. You've proven you're old enough without actually saying how old you are.
Oh, I see.
That's kind of the idea behind zero-knowledge proofs. You prove something's true without revealing the actual information.
So like the orb is proving my iris matches the iris code without actually showing anyone what my iris looks like.
Exactly. And with this new World ID 2.0, they've got 3 levels of verification now: Device Orb and Orb Plus.
Oh.
So you have more control over how you want to prove who you are.
Okay, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all thing. People can choose how much security they're comfortable with.
Right, more options.
But even with all that security, the trust thing is still there. Do we really want to give our biometrics to a private company?
It's a legitimate concern, and WorldCoin's trying to address it with transparency. They're making their code open source, encouraging people to audit it and review it.
Oh, so anyone can like check under the hood and see what's going on.
Yeah, basically trying to build trust by being as open as possible.
I guess that makes sense if they want people to actually use the system.
Yeah.
But let's move on to what really sets WorldCoin apart, this whole universal basic income thing.
Okay, yeah. Their plan to use WorldCoin to basically make UBI happen everywhere.
It's a bold idea, but like we said before, it's got its challenges.
For sure. But it's interesting how they're approaching it. You know, they're trying to solve 2 of the biggest problems that have always plagued UBI.
Which are?
Funding and distribution. The traditional models usually rely on taxes, which is a political nightmare.
Right, no one likes paying more taxes.
Exactly. But WorldCoin sidesteps that by creating a whole new economic system with its own currency.
So the funding comes from WorldCoin itself.
Yeah, essentially the idea is that as more people use WorldCoin, its value goes up, creating this self-sustaining system that can fund the UBI.
Clever, but that means they're relying on WorldCoin actually becoming a popular currency.
Yeah, that's the gamble. There's no guarantee it'll work out.
There's already like Bitcoin and Ethereum out there. Those are pretty big players. What makes WorldCoin think it can compete with them?
Well, they've got this whole orb thing and the proof of personhood angle.
Right, that's different from most cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, it's their unique selling point. And then there's the whole social mission thing with UBI that could attract a lot of people.
Makes sense, but it's also different from something like Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, for sure. Bitcoin was designed to be like digital gold, something to hold on to and watch its value grow.
Okay.
WorldCoin, on the other hand, is meant to be used for everyday stuff.
So it's less about HODling and more about actually using it.
Exactly. And then there's the whole energy consumption thing. Bitcoin uses a ton of energy with its proof of work system.
Right, I've heard about that.
WorldCoin is moving towards proof of stake, which is way more efficient.
That's good with all the climate change stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely more sustainable. But even with all these advantages, it's not going to be easy. The crypto world is super competitive.
So do you think they'll make it? Is WorldCoin the next big thing or just another fad?
Honestly, it's too early to tell. There are so many things that could happen, new tech regulations. The market itself is unpredictable, but the thing is, they're asking some really important questions about identity, about finance, about what it even means to be human in this digital age.
Those are some big questions, and we've really only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack.
It's hard to predict what the future holds.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, WorldCoin is making us think about how technology is shaping our world.
Definitely. And it's a good reminder that tech isn't good or bad on its own. It's a tool.
Right.
It's up to us how we use it.
Feels like we're at this point where the digital and the real world are kind of becoming the same thing.
Yeah, it's blurring the lines for sure. And WorldCoin is right in the middle of it all, with the biometrics, the blockchain, and this whole UBI thing.
Let's talk more about the UBI aspect. It's like a radical idea. I'm still trying to grasp how they actually think they can pull it off.
Well, their whole thing is that by giving everyone a piece of the WorldCoin pie, they can make a fairer, richer world. So as WorldCoin gets more popular and its value goes up, the UBI they fund with, it would be like a safety net for everyone.
Sounds good on paper. But what if WorldCoin doesn't become this global currency they're dreaming of?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
For UBI to work, WorldCoin has to be a real currency that people use every day, not just something they gamble on.
So it's not just about getting free tokens. It's about building a whole new economy where those tokens actually buy stuff.
Exactly. And that's where things get tricky. We've seen how crazy crypto prices can be.
Right up one day down the next.
Imagine getting your UBI payment in WorldCoin, and then boom, its value tanks.
Not exactly confidence inspiring.
So one of their biggest challenges is making WorldCoin stable and trustworthy.
They have to show people it's not just another risky bet, but something they can rely on.
Right, and that's tough in the crypto world where scams and crashes are still happening all the time.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West out there.
But WorldCoin is trying to set themselves apart by focusing on real-world use. They're partnering with businesses to accept WorldCoin for payments and pushing for apps and services built on their platform.
So it's about building a whole ecosystem around WorldCoin, not just a token.
Exactly. They're betting that by creating this network of users, merchants, developers, they can get more people using it and make WorldCoin more valuable and stable.
It's a long game, but definitely interesting to watch.
High stakes, too. If they pull it off, it could change everything, not just money, but society as we know it.
Wow, imagine a world without poverty, where everyone has access to banking and can participate in the global economy no matter where they are or what their background is. That's what WorldCoin is aiming for.
It's a utopian vision, no doubt, but also full of challenges and uncertainty.
It's impossible to say what will happen, especially with tech moving so fast.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, WorldCoin is making us ask some big questions about technology's role in shaping our world.
It is, and it reminds us that tech itself isn't good or evil, it's just a tool.
Right, we decide how to use it.
And by talking about it, thinking critically about its impact, we can help create a future that's better for everyone, more fair, more prosperous.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into WorldCoin, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away?
I think the most important thing is to approach this, and really any new tech, with a critical but open mind. Don't just buy the hype or dismiss it out of hand.
Right.
Do your research, understand the good and the bad, and then decide for yourself if you believe in what they're trying to do.
Because at the end of the day, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we make through our choices and our actions.
That's right. And by having these conversations, we can shape a future we're proud of.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into WorldCoin. It's been a wild ride, and I'm sure our listeners had a lot to think about.
It's always great to chat with you about these complex topics.
To everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Keep exploring. Stay curious. And remember, the future is waiting to be written.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Echoes of Insight. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who loves exploring big ideas. Together, let's keep the conversation going. See you next time.